Hello and welcome to Conscious Living, this Spirit Plant Medicine Conference episode. It's that time of the year again where we are getting ready in just a few short days for the first fully virtual Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, which is going to be really airing here live in Vancouver and from all other parts of the world. So it's quite exciting. And I'm here with my good friend, co-host, MC, and all-around great guy, Mr. Stephen Gray. Stephen, always a pleasure.
Yes, well, I got to make sure I don't buy my own publicity there, though.
Well, hey, come on. It's a pleasure working with you, and we're having a lot of fun getting ready for the conference coming up. And we're here today with another special guest, one of our fine presenters that I'm going to pass it on to you to introduce.
Sure, happy to, yeah, and delighted to have this wonderful person with us. Excuse me, her name is Dr. Seeta Narsai, and she holds a clinical doctorate in Ayurvedic medicine and comes from a long line of Indian women. That's like Indian from India for those people on the West Coast that sometimes think that that's called East Indian. In any case, Indian women who have carried and passed down this traditional natural healing system from generation to generation. Educated in both Western and Eastern medical scientists, Seeta is uniquely positioned in the field of integrative medicine, mind-body medicine. She studied kinesiology and exercise physiology as a collegiate athlete at the University of Michigan, and is also a kundalini yoga teacher and an avid practitioner of Vipassana Dzogchen meditation. Profound personal experiences with spirit medicines like Ayahuasca led Seeta to interweave the wisdom of Ayurvedic medicine with sacred plants and fungi. So, welcome, Seeta.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me.
It's our pleasure. Well, I have a question right off the bat, Stephen, if I may. As much as I know a lot about your culture, and you talk about Ayurvedic medicine and then plant medicines, right off the top is, how did you get in and then combine the two? What's your story there?
Well, let's start off with what Ayurveda is. Probably people don't know what Ayurveda is. It's a 5,000-year-old system of healing, mind, body, spirit from ancient India. And it was brought down through revelation. So through the states of meditation, a lot of this wisdom was brought down. And then through observation and, trial and error over thousands and thousands of years, this system developed. But through deep states of awareness, mindfulness, and being in nature, that's how Ayurveda came about. And as we know, plants speak to us, right? Plants are spirit teachers. All of them are spirit teachers. So how I got to Ayurveda, it's been in my lineage, but the journey into Ayurveda started after a 10-day silent meditation course. So 10 hours basically a day for 10 days, Vipassana. And that really connected me to the spirit of plants. I was able to have a communication with plant life without any psychedelics, right? This was just with breath and meditation. So that's what really opened me up to the awareness that plants are teachers. All of them are sacred teachers. And through the journey of life, somehow these medicines were offered to me. And because I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, all medicines are teachers. I wanted to have a firsthand experience. So when I sat for Ayahuasca for the first time, actually the second time is really when I had a profound experience where the plant showed me that one of my duties in this lifetime was going to be to help merge the ancient teachings of Ayurveda with Ayahuasca, because even though Ayahuasca is, from South America, from this part of the world, Ayurveda really is a teaching of nature. All nature is a healing agent. So we can encompass all plant medicines into the framework of Ayurveda to understand how they work on the mind, body, and spirit. So all plants will work on the mind, body, spirit, because that's the continuum of who we are. And long story of how I got there.
Oh, that's great. I love the connection and how you just talk about all plants are teachers. Yeah, it's great.
So following up on that, can you tell us a little bit about your own family lineage? I mentioned in the bio that you come from a long line of Indian women who have carried and passed down these traditional healing medicine teachings. And can you give us a little bit of a background on that, a little bit of history?
Yes, my great-grandmother, she was the village midwife and medicine woman, as were many grandmothers in ancient times, right? We were medicine keepers because we had to learn to heal our family. And we didn't have any other medicines. Our medicines were the medicines that grew in our backyards, or back then in our farms or in the forest, right? So the wisdom of Ayurveda interwove with the traditions of like Hinduism, if you were Jain, if you were Sikh, the ancient medicine systems became a part of the culture and fabric and matrix of India. So it was kind of inseparable. Most Indian women, if you were from the villages, understood what plant medicines were because that's how you had to heal. So my great-grandmother, she formulated remedies for parasite infections, viral infections. Back then we didn't know what viral infections were, but now we know in modern science what they were. But she collected various herbs, put them together, and healed different types of ailments. And also the cooking in Ayurveda, the cooking in the Indian kitchen, right, is healing itself because you're using herbs like ginger, turmeric, cumin, coriander, cilantro. All of these are plant teachers that have their own health benefits and physiological effects. For example, cilantro, right, including that into the cuisine of Indian cooking is medicine. It's kitchen medicine. It's turning the kitchen into an apothecary. So cilantro is a heavy metal chelator. It's a digestive. It helps to cool the nervous system. So that's what it teaches the body to do. So there's a variety of different plants that can help us in the kitchen. We also have plants like Tulsi, holy basil, that are used to calm the nervous system, to expand the vital lung capacity. They're used in a ritual ceremony and offered to God, right? It's offered to the altar before prayers because they're imbibed with holy mantras. So basically that plant Tulsi takes on that vibration of all of your prayers and intentions. You offer it to the Divine Mother or the Divine Father, and after your prayers are over, you consume that as a sacrament. And Tulsi is one of the most amazing plants to bring us to a state of calm and meditation. So these are some of the plants that are used in my family's kitchen, and they have been for thousands of years.
Well, I like all those herbs and spices you just
I know.
mentioned.
I was getting hungry. All that cilantro talk. I was like,
No wonder I like cilantro. Yeah. So yeah, I have questions that can come out of that, but one of them is maybe this is a little bit of a left field question, but just for the kind of like for the fun of it, I suppose. My wife and I traveled in southern India. We're only in 3 states: Karnataka, Kerala, and what's the one?
Tamil Nadu?
Yeah, those 3. We both felt, especially we were there for 5.5 weeks, just traveling around with the regular folk, cheap buses and all that kind of stuff. And after a while, we both started to feel there was some kind of, I don't even know what the word is. You know, the word magic is almost too cheap or reductionist or something, but there was something in the air, you know, and strange coincidences would happen where just when we were feeling completely lost and didn't know where to go next, you know, on a train or something, the person beside us, you know, who up to that point had said nothing, would just turn to us and go, "Can I help you?" and oh yes, I know exactly where you have to go, you know. And this happened numerous times. And I mean, if I don't want to hog the airwaves, otherwise I'd tell you about a couple of even more powerful ones that happened. But so the question I'm asking you is, would you agree with that? Would you say that there's some kind of spiritual, subtle energy that still exists in India that's unusual on this planet?
Absolutely. I feel like it's a vortex of energy, and all of the sages and sadhus and, you know, keepers of this wisdom who, through their penance, through their tapas, through their spiritual practice, I feel that they've also grounded that energy. I think it's a two-way thing. I think the energy, that there's an actual vortex there, because I've been to the Himalayas and various parts of India on pilgrimage, and it's as if the land itself vibrates the mantra Om. That's what I just felt, Om, especially in the Himalayas when there's nothing there. But I do think that also each human body itself is the vortex, especially if you chant the name of the divine as you do, right? So when we're connected, I think we connect to the cosmic mind of India, the cosmic mind of Mother Nature, Mother Divine. So there is absolutely a vibration to the land itself, to the people itself, and then also you, right? So it's just connecting us to our spiritual family. So even though that you're in this, this Western body, I'm sure you've had past lifetimes in India. I'm almost certain both of you have, right? And that's the beauty of also what you both are doing in this plant medicine conference, is that these sacred teachers help us remember that we're all one family connected.
Well, I just wanted to comment. I know in 2007, I was introduced to a 5,000-year-old ancient meditation that literally in 30, 40 minutes, I had the biggest awakening and changed my life. And it was an ancient Indian meditation called a chakra dhyana. And it led me down that path of just learning and reading and studying. And, I'm not that I've been to India yet, but
not in this lifetime.
No, exactly. Not in this physical incarnation. But I can say from my own experience, it has been by far from a spiritual practice for me, has given me the most connection to the divine in using some of those ancient practices. And it blows my mind. So just thank you for sharing. I totally agree. Yeah.
I have a Tibetan monastic background. I've been told by a few different channelers and psychics, and it makes sense. I studied Tibetan Buddhism for quite a while, but enough about me. Let's talk about you.
I love to hear that, because I feel connected to the Tibetan lineage too. And I feel like I've had a couple of lifetimes in Tibet, for sure.
Okay, well, I will tell you briefly then. I saw a psychic. Actually, when I was living in LA, when I told you I lived in LA for 3 years in the late 80s, somebody recommended this fellow named Kit Wilkins, and he was an amazingly powerful psychic. And he said, "Oh yeah, you're doing a tarot reading," and he closed his eyes. He said, "Oh my, yeah, you had a long time in Tibet, and in the kind of the monastic world." He said, "This is your first lifetime kind of coming out into the world, away from that world. And so now you're kind of a newbie in that world, trying to figure out how to maneuver." And so I connected with Chogyam Trungpa. You probably know who that is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And very, very strongly connected with him personally. And so was a student of that Sangha while he was around, and then started to fade away somewhat from it afterwards. They started to have a lot of troubles and so on. But I've been told by psychics that I'd known him before too. I suspect I was a student of his in past lives. Yeah. But again, enough about me.
That's the beauty of recognizing that we are indeed a spirit, and this body is merely a vessel that we are traveling this life in, because it helps us to recognize and connect to these lineages that we've had, these many lineages that we've had, and these many lifetimes we've had. And therefore, our teachers, who may not be in their physical bodies, but they might be in their subtle bodies all around us, right? To remember that is who we really are. And then it helps us to navigate life, psychedelic journeys, all of that in a much, how would I say, in a much harmonious way, to really reveal to us what our dharma is, what our life path is, and to ultimately lead us to the realization of who we really are, which is spirit and the divine itself. So it's a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, yeah, sure. So let's go into Ayurveda a little bit more, as it has come to the West. And, maybe a starter question might be something like, you've already talked about it a little bit about how, plants are medicine, even the herbs that you put on your food, are medicine. So can you go into a little bit more about what it is that Ayurveda has to teach Western medicine? Because, I think all three of us here know that there are some, serious holes in the under the cosmology, you might say, of Western medicine.
The first thing that comes to me is recognizing that we are spirit and we must heal that part of ourselves.
Mm.
And these plant teachers, and not even just these plant teachers, but these tools in Ayurveda, like mantra, like breath work, like yoga, they serve to heal us in mind, body, spirit. Like if we look at the Western framework, spirit is totally omitted from the entire healing process. And if we are indeed spirit, and that's what our true nature is, that's the missing component. So Ayurveda reintroduces that concept of mind, body, spirit healing, and that we are a continuum of those three. Also, that we are inseparably interconnected with nature. And we can see this in the health of nature. When nature is unhealthy, there will be a reflection of unhealth in our physical body. And we see that through the mass deforestation, the pollution of the rivers, and the pollution of the air, and the increase of asthma, anxiety, depression, cancer in our physical body. So we are nature. This body is nature, right?
Mm.
So we must connect back to nature and hear what nature needs, right? Nature needs so many things right now. Nature itself needs so much healing, but that healing comes through the healing of ourselves. So we're inseparable between nature, and we are the same, like we are nature. So that's something Western medicine can learn, because it's not just a quick fix. You can't just take this little pill to solve an emotional upset. We have to dive into the psyche. We have to calm the nervous system at the root of where that trauma or that anxiety is coming from, right? Is it because we're living in a society that is so polluted? Is it because our nutrition is so out of harmony with nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are eating foods that cause dis-ease, imbalance in the system.
Mm-hmm.
So when that happens, we can't fully be integrated in mind, body, spirit, and that natural bliss and happiness and joy and health that comes forth isn't there. Also, just what modern medicine can learn too is our water systems. We need to clean that up again. We can't just, you guys know this, right? And probably listeners know, like it's filled with fluoride, residue of drugs, and we take in some of that vibration. Positive news is that, we have the messages of Dr. Emoto and also the ancient teachings of Tibet and India, is that through mantra, through mantra, through intention, through prayer, we can shift the molecular structure of water and everything that we eat. So even though it might be poison, you can shift the molecular structure and allow it to be nectar again. So this is why we have to come back to some of these ancient teachings, because so much of nature around us is in a state of disharmony. So it's difficult for our body and mind and spirit to be in a state of harmony. But we can do that through all of these ancient teachings. And I think that's why we're so blessed and lucky that all of these ancient teachings are coming together, and we have access to just the wisdom of the world right now at our fingertips on our computers.
Yeah, that's great. So do you see a lot of inroads of this kind of worldview or understanding, which is, I love the way you just expressed that.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. Do you see it infiltrating, so to speak, into Western thought very much at this time?
Yes, I think it's slowly coming into Western thought. I think they're just in the world of psychedelics, right? the inability to, or the renaissance of psychedelics, the inability to heal post-traumatic stress, to heal trauma, these depression, these things, Western medicine, we haven't really had an ability to cope with them, right? So coming back to these plant teachers, I think we're seeing it now in the Renaissance, right? We're seeing it in the Renaissance of even yoga and mindfulness and meditation, and people seeking out these ancient sciences. I mean, they're being studied at Harvard, UCLA, right? The sacred plant medicines are being studied, as well as mindfulness and meditation. So there's absolutely a renaissance, and I'm excited for it.
Great. You've alluded to it, basically set the groundwork already for, the way that plants and herbs and so on are, spirits, and, how important they are, especially to be devotional toward them and that kind of thing. But could you elaborate more on how Ayurveda dovetails, you might say, with psychedelic medicines? How does that work? How do they support or help each other or empower the work and the healing?
So Ayurveda, the ultimate purpose of Ayurveda is self-realization. That's why this science came about, to support the yogis in realizing their full potential and their divine nature. So that's the ultimate goal of Ayurveda. And it does that by bringing the body back into health and homeostasis. Sacred plant medicines, psychedelics, I would say, they fit into a category called soma, that divine nectar or ambrosial nectar. And in ancient India, they have been used by certain yogis. But the highest yogis have said you don't need anything at all, that you must find this soma or this divine nectar within yourself without the need of any external plant or medicines. So we have a soma, inner soma that exists. This inner plant medicine exists. The plant medicines exist within us. We're able to access them just through breath work or meditation. That takes a long time to cultivate. I do think that the world we live in today, that these sacred plant teachers, they are beneficial for many people who have not cultivated deeper practices to heal emotional imbalances and traumas. So it belongs to a category called soma, or the ambrosial nectar. And in ancient times, they were used to hasten the process of healing and to support the process of meditation. Like cannabis, we know, has been used in ancient times by certain sadhus and Shaivites, certain sects of Shiva worshippers. But it's also said that, this, cannabis is the body of Shiva. It is Shiva, but only Shiva can handle it. So you must have a lifestyle of Shiva, right? You must have the penance. You must practice breathing exercise. You must practice controlling the sacred life force, and your sexual life force too. Practice celibacy. Use the energy of the cannabis plant to help awaken spirituality. But then there's another branch of teaching that says you don't need it at all, right? Find that teacher within you and awaken it within you. Because once you've tasted the medicine, I believe that the vibration exists in you forever. So you always have an access point just through your breath. And we'll learn too in Ayurveda that breath itself is spirit, and breath is also memory. So with our breath, we can access memories. We can access the memory of these sacred plants, and we can also access past life memories and release traumas just through the breath. So the breath itself is soma. The breath itself is a psychedelic. Really, it is.
I've had psychedelic experiences with just breath work and things like inner dance, music, sound. It's amazing the experiences you can have in these guided practices. And even, when I talked about my experience in 2007, I was the leanest, cleanest. I was in the best shape of my life, and it was like I've never been back to exactly that place. And it was as psychedelic as it was in some areas, it was also just very interesting. So I totally hear what you're saying. And I thank you for sharing that, because I think it's a great reminder that we don't need these. One of the things I often say is, yes, you don't need them, yet the psychedelics can be the catalyst, like the rocket fuel to that awakening, because as you mentioned earlier, it takes a long time to really, cultivate and develop these practices.
And what you said, the breath, the music, the artwork, the dance, those are all somas. Those are all ambrosial nectar that connects us back to divine bliss, just as plants are. And I do think that many people that have traumas, they may need the help of specific spirit medicines to break through those traumas and to awaken bhakti, that devotion within, that wisdom within, and give them the discipline to continue forward on their spiritual path. Because when I did Aya, I was embraced by Mother, but I was also in a way scolded. I was told that you have the wisdom, you have the knowledge of meditation. Is your meditation practice an hour? Are you staying connected to the rhythms and rituals of these sacred practices and yoga? And the answer at that time was no. So it was like, don't come back until you do these things.
Oh, beautiful.
So that's how she guided me.
Yeah, that's great, because I was, I would have been curious to ask you anyway about some of your personal experiences. But before we get too far away from the cannabis issue, I'm really glad you brought that up, because, as you know, as everybody knows, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere these days. And I very little I know. It does have an ancient connection, I believe. It's considered an Ayurvedic medicine. And so I'm just wondering, I know there's no sort of simple or reductive answer to this, but what would you say in maybe a general sense is the sort of the healthiest approach for people in the West in their use of cannabis?
I think that depends on each individual constitution. Ayurveda is an individualist, like it's an individual approach. So each person is a unique manifestation. Each person has unique imbalances. I will say that it should be taken as a sacrament. It should be taken as a medicine, and that if you can, refrain from recreational use. And there's a lot of reasons for that, because it's a sacred medicine. It's been used to enhance digestion, appetite. It's been used to help support just digestive imbalances in general. Obviously, it's an analgesic. It helps with pain relief. It can be used for cancer. So there's so many different uses for this medicine. It can support sleep. Like, sleep is one of the 3 pillars of health and well-being in Ayurveda. And if sleep is disturbed, then, your immunity is disturbed, your cognitive awareness, your ability to think. It affects every area of your life if sleep is not there. So cannabis can be used for that. However, there's thousands of other herbs that can be used too. Because it's so easy to access, I've had many clients that tell me they would rather use cannabis because it's cheaper than therapy. And, it is. And I think there is can be a more sacred way to use it. Obviously, because I come from a Vedic lineage, I would say Shiva mantras, deep intention, asking the medicine for guidance, and then the medicine itself will guide you. But then you have to be willing to listen to that guidance, because maybe that guidance will say, you're not eating well, quit alcohol, quit eating fast food, that hamburger isn't good for you. And if you're guided that way and then you don't listen, then you're not really listening to the teachings of the plant. So I think cannabis is a sacrament. It should be taken as a sacrament. And that's what I think that's what the West needs to remember, is that this is an ancient teacher. and we must treat it that way. And then there comes a use where, it's been used in combination with other herbs like Tulsi. So it's been used synergistically with Tulsi and 40 other herbs for enhancing libido, for example. So if you're a married person, you have low libido, then in Ayurveda, sex is one of the 3 pillars of health and well-being. So enhancing libido is essential, right? Especially if one partner's libido is totally gone. Then cannabis can be used medicinally to balance that.
What is the 3rd pillar, by the way?
Food.
Ah, yes. Oh, no, that's great. Yeah. When you were talking about that earlier, it reminded me that I mentioned that my wife and I was in 2008, maybe, I forget. Yeah, I think so. We traveled in 3 southern states of India, and we never had a bad meal in 5.5 weeks in India. And we weren't going to high-end restaurants. We were just going to regular kind of places. We were staying in sort of budget hotels, motels, and, eating, at basic kind of places, and everything was good, always. And then on the rare occasions that our hotel room had a television, we would see these ads for Cheetos or something, in Hindi or whatever. And I just, oh my God, I can't believe it. This is a country with this incredible cuisine, thousands of years old, and now they're pushing Twinkies on people, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, the modern world has a lot of benefits like this call that we're on right now, but food and our connection to that source of prana. Food itself is a type of breath, the prana that we take in. It's totally been kind of destroyed in the Western world. We've just forgotten what food does to our consciousness and to our spirit. Food becomes a part of our mind. The subtle essence of food is our mind. And if we just look at the acronym of, the standard American diet, it's SAD, S-A-D, and it's truly that. There's just no prana or life force in the food that we eat here. That's why it's about coming back to nature again for the whole entire world. We need to come back to the teachings of Mother Nature. And as we eat these plants, the plants themselves will teach you that, hey, we need to start having plants in our backyard. We need to grow these plants. We need to touch these plants. Plants themselves are such great teachers, and they also they receive kind of our own biology. So as we touch a plant, like as I touch this plant, my own chemistry and the sweat that's on my hands as I'm nurturing this plant, it will communicate with this plant and shift the medicinal properties of this plant to meet the needs of me, of my needs. So even growing your own medicinal plants like cannabis, whatever medicines that you're taking, as you nurture them yourselves, your own chemicals on your hand shift the nature of the plant. Sorry, there's like a motorcycle driving by.
Oh, is that what that was?
You hear it?
Yeah.
Going like a zoom.
Been hearing a little something like that since the beginning, basically. I thought maybe it was your stomach grumbling.
Well, I thought maybe it was mine, because all of that talk of Indian food, which is my favorite, by the way, you started making me hungry.
Yeah.
But I do love what you were saying, Seeta, because I've always been saying that nature is really the best pharmacy, and when I identify with what you're saying, because about 13, 14 years ago, I changed to being vegetarian and almost vegan. And I just noticed the difference, not just in my body, but also in my mind and my thinking, and just the way everything, like things were brighter and clearer and easier. I wasn't, and then there's less anxiety and stress. Everything just shifted from that moment in 2007 when everything changed. Part of that was diet too. But what an amazing difference, because like you're saying, if we think of our body as that temple that connects with the divine and all of nature, if it's cleaner and more natural versus, all the chemicals and the foods that they're putting out there. And I always suggest that people read the packaging on some of this packaged food. It comes all wrapped up and it's made to look all good for you, but it's got all sorts of crazy products in it and then chemicals and preservatives and things that we're eating. You are eating food-like products versus eating real, natural, organic, clean food.
It's devoid of prana or life force. Most of the food that we eat that's packaged that way, it doesn't have that same intelligence that a fresh meal would have, right? Even meat today, I think in Ayurveda there is meats that are recommended for various people, but the meat we had in the ancient times is not the same as the factory farm meats today.
Right. Yeah.
When the animals were hunted, there's a difference between that animal that was free and healthy in nature, as opposed to the animals that are in cages. And, I don't even want to get into how
No, exactly.
Yeah.
World. So everything needs to change. But that change happens through each person and our individual choices, because every person watching, if we choose to make that shift in our lives to just take in foods that are more harmoniously grown and cultivated and are cleaner, then our environment will be cleaner. So that's why I say we are nature. As we take care of this vessel, this body temple, then we will see that reflection in the world. Because if everyone starts to take care of their body, then we'll see that reflection in the world, because there will be no more need for all of these, horrible foods. People are going to ask for even meats that are grown or cultivated in a more loving and harmonious and clean grass-fed environment. I'm a vegetarian myself, but in Ayurveda, it goes by constitution. There are times where people need to eat meat, depending on where their mind, body, spirit is and what their imbalances are.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, actually. Yeah.
Well, it's super important. I think that, the sooner we can get back to nature, the sooner, humanity will change and continue to awaken.
But also the inclusion of hopefully, respectfully grown meat. There's some of that happening in our area. You can get organic free-range chicken and pasture grass-fed beef in some of the smaller shops around here.
And I want to throw in one thing if we're still talking about this, if I may, Stephen. Are you changing subjects there?
I was about.
Okay. Well, I want to just say this to anybody who's watching anywhere. And this is something I think we need to wake up to in the world today. And it's kind of what Seeta was talking about, industrial produced meats and all of these things. Even in your fast foods, even in your junk and everything else, there's a phrase that they use in the corporate kitchen that I learned from a documentary, and they call it craveability because they can't call it addictability. And these organizations, these big corporations that are out there that are fighting for all your dollars and everything else, they are setting it up so that we crave these things, so we buy more of it, right? And I just want people to be aware that that's kind of happening in these corporate kitchens. And when you get out of a corporate kitchen and get to natural, whole-based foods, I'll tell you what, they're a lot more tasty, they're a lot more healthy, and they're a lot, it's something that's going to change the world, because we're getting fed stuff that we really shouldn't and wouldn't be eating if we were a natural human animal, right? And that's just something I just want to share with people, because when we wake up to that, it helps us change our direction and our focus, I think.
Yeah, well, the whole focus of what you're saying here, Seeta, about the sort of like integrated cosmology of around all of this stuff is revolutionary, and I think what you're implying, if not saying directly even, is that this is absolutely essential for the future of the planet, for the generations to come. But I would like to slightly diverge here, not really. You know who Chris Killam is, no doubt, the medicine hunter. And he has a new book coming out called The Lotus in the Bud. And in that book, it's not out yet, but he lists about 10 or 12 of his favorite herbs, or I guess you'd call them herbs. So I was wondering if you could talk about some of the most accessible, common, and useful in a more general sense. And I'll just mention one. Chris said of all the herbs that he's aware of, Shisandra and all these different ones, his favorite is Ashwagandha. Just wonder if you could comment on that one.
I'm sipping on a little bit of ashwagandha here. I think ashwagandha is a plant that actually can be grown in America now, and ashwa means horse, gandha means smell, or the smell of the horse, but also the stamina of a horse. So ashwagandha, it gives you the stamina of a horse. It calms the nervous system in the sense that like that energy of vata, or that wind-like energy, but it gives you that stamina, that steadiness, and also the libido of a horse too. It's a ashwagandha is a very strong aphrodisiac, but it can also be transmuted. So if you don't want that aphrodisiac effect, if you are practicing celibacy, then there's yogic exercises where you can get hold of that energy and bring that nectar up here. So ashwagandha, it helps with sports performance. It's actually in one of my sports performance blends. I use it before I do yoga. I use it before I'm using it now. I think just because so much of our society is in a state of anxiousness and stress, ashwagandha has the ability to lower cortisol and anxiety. It can be used for that emotional overwhelm. We can use ashwagandha for that. And even just like that physical exhaustion of like sitting in traffic and that fast-paced hustle and bustle can be very stressful on the human body and mind and spirit. So ashwagandha has that ability to support you in calming the nervous system. So other herbs that I have in here are Tulsi. I think Tulsi is an herb that everyone should grow in their backyard if they can. I'm actually starting a project to help disperse seeds of Tulsi, holy basil, because it's so vital and it's so important, especially in the world that we're living in. So remember, we were saying that the reflection of Mother Nature is a reflection of our own body. So if we look at the coronavirus, it restricts the lungs in our system, right? People are saying they can't breathe, when they're infected with the virus in more severe cases. But then let's look at even in society, there were cases where, a man was suffocated to death. He said, I can't breathe, right? George Floyd. Then if we look at nature itself and the forests that are being burned, the lungs of the earth are being burned. So you can see how the breath or the lungs of the world and also the human being are being constricted. So we are interconnected with this planet Earth. So I feel Tulsi is one plant that we should grow in every backyard. That's one of my visions that I have, and I want to help disperse seeds so that we can grow them, because they grow like weeds in our backyard, and it helps to reduce the carbon blueprint as well. But more importantly, it helps to heal our mind and our consciousness. So Tulsi is so vital, right now for all of humanity.
How do you spell that word?
Tulsi, Tulsi, holy basil. It's very, you can get it at Whole Foods. There's teas. It's a very common herb now. It's an adaptogen. It helps to calm the nervous system, reduce cortisol levels. It helps to reduce the toxic effects of radiation, cell phone radiation. So many reasons we need to use this plant.
Well, when you're ready to do your distribution, whatever that project is, please reach out. I'd be happy to share it with our communities.
Okay.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great.
We don't want you to give away too much of what you're going to talk about at the conference, but for anyone who sees this or hears this interview beforehand, I imagine it's going to be on the topics we've been discussing today, but could you give like a little trailer or hint of where your talk is going to go?
Absolutely. So we were just talking about the cosmic breath and how the breath of nature and our own breath is connected to the totality of everything. Breath is spirit, breath is memory, breath is immunity, breath is teacher. Breath itself is guru, like the teacher. Breath itself is a guru, like a teacher, a sacred teacher. It's our most intimate companion. So I'm going to dive into what breath is in Ayurveda, how breath affects us, and then how taking plant medicines with sacred breath can shift the way we journey. So shifting our breath when we journey is really the way the medicine should be taken, with conscious breath. So I don't want to get too much into it. I'm trying to like hold back here. But those are some of the things that we will get into. And I will say this, that breath itself is memory, and it has the ability to dive deep into our consciousness and pull out those memories that may not be serving us and help us to release them. And that's why breath is the first thing that we learn in meditation. You learn to just connect to the breath at the tip of your nose, like in Vipassana meditation. And that's basically how you start learning, is having that awareness of the breath coming in and out. And as you become more intimate with that teacher, it'll help navigate all of our journeys in life.
Beautifully put. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I look forward to that.
Yeah. So Marc, I have one question or a request actually that I want to put to Seeta as the very last thing we do. So if you have any other questions in the meantime, could we design it so that I get that last one in there at some point?
And consider it done.
Right.
No problem. So, Seeta, I'm just kind of curious, when it comes down to working with the spirit plant medicines in regards to, psychedelics in that way, is there a particular medicine that you particularly favor yourself or find more effective? Or because there's such a wide range of medicines out there now that people are hearing about, and some people they think it's like going to a store. Right? And that's certainly not what it is, because we always talk about set and setting and the right practitioner. But is there something you could say about your experience that way that, if people were kind of curious?
Well, I think listening to spirit guides you to the right one. So, and sometimes it has been Aya. Mother Aya, I've been guided to it. I think also the sacred mushroom is a plant medicine, or like a fungi or a fungi, right? That we can take in. It's very difficult to say for me. It depends on my state of consciousness and where I am. All of them are great in different times of my being and my consciousness. So I can't answer that. Because they're also special, and in different ways they've supported the healing journey. So just to put one above any other one, I think they all have their place.
Yes, and you did actually answer the question, and it wasn't to put one above any other. It's just, some people are really particular with certain medicines. What you did, where the answer was for me, when you talked about, you kind of get the calling, you listen to the plants, right? And like, I had never even heard of ayahuasca until, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I was thinking, I've never heard of that, or DMT. I've never heard of that. I thought I was always a pretty worldly guy and up to what was going on. And then all of a sudden, everywhere I turned, ayahuasca, like I was being called is how I felt. And as I did my own research and learning, that was the path that I took, for a short period. For me, it's about that calling that you were talking about. And I think it's really important, because the mushroom came up for me in the same way after, being a teenager back in the 80s. I thought they were, when I heard they were still around, I was like, mushrooms are still around? I thought they're prehistoric, and then all of a sudden the rabbit hole the rabbit hole open, and here we are, years later, working with the mission to share the message of the plants with the world for transformation. So you did answer my question.
I wanted to add one thing, is because like peyote, it wasn't my most favorable experience physically, but it was a great, great, great teacher. And I learned so much from that specific teacher. I sat for with the medicine only one time, but it's come to me, a native healer, a chief gave me an amulet. So I carry that in a medicine pouch. So that was my first time I got it. I didn't ingest it that way, but I ingested it in my heart. But the first time I did take the medicine, and there were Navajo elders there as well, I learned so much about past lifetimes, my own incarnations, being Indian, Native Indian, my own relationship with the sacred fire and the intelligence of the sacred fire, and how fire itself is a consciousness and spirit guide. Fire itself is a spirit guide. It really tune in. It's infinite eyes. And so that's why I say all of them are teachers, and they've all called it. It's not my favorite, but it's given me such a profound experience that it has to be among, it's one of my teachers. It has taught me a great deal. But it was a difficult journey.
Yes. I know. I'm really glad you honored peyote, bringing it into it, because I spent about a dozen years connected with the Native American Church in northwestern Washington State, and yes, it can be very difficult, of course. Although the people have been doing it for a long time, they don't get well that often. They've learned how to, just let it do its work, so to speak. But I just wanted to say that I've been around quite a few different kinds of containers, different versions of ayahuasca containers, Santo Daime down in Peru, and the Tibetan Buddhism that I used to be involved with. I've been around a lot of containers, and of all the containers that I've ever encountered, heads above or hearts above is the container of the Native American Church. It's such a solid, pure container. And one morning when they expressed themselves, the roadman Ken Littlefish said, relatives, we have very few rules in here, and they're all there for one reason, so that we don't block the entrance of spirit coming into the teepee.
Can you say that one more time?
The rules in the teepee are few, and they exist only for one reason, so that that people don't get in the way of the spirit coming into the teepee to be with people. Yeah. But I also just wanted to ask you one more time about your own personal relationship with cannabis. Do you use it frequently? You've talked about using it sacramentally. Is it an ongoing part of your own medicine personal work?
I have used it when I was younger. Now I don't, because the tools I come to now, and this was my lessons or my my awarenesses that came through both ayahuasca and even peyote, is that it's time for you to lean on breath. It's time for you to lean on meditation. It's time for you to lean on mantra healing. And I think I was using cannabis too much in my younger days. And now I feel like I can access it just through shifting my breath. So I don't use it anymore unless I'm having difficult sleeping. And then I will combine it with other Ayurvedic herbs to support sleep. But I choose to use other tools that I have now. But it's definitely supported my healing journey. And it's got me to where I am now.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's great. So, Marc, if you don't have any other questions, I have this one little simple request I wanted to make of Seeta.
Absolutely. I always have lots of questions. However, we'll save those for another time.
Excellent. Yeah. So you may not want to respond to this, Seeta, actually, but what I wanted to ask you is, could you end our interview with either a spoken or, even better, a sung mantra that you'd like to share with people?
Oh, wow.
Ooh, on the spot. Not that and if you are, we're not going to, we're going to close off first and then we'll go into it. Well, Seeta, before you start, because we're going to finish off with this so we don't have to come back, and it would just be a beautiful ending for all of us and things. I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day today to join Stephen and I and talk about the upcoming conference. We look forward to your presentation on breath and what you're going to bring to our community and the people who are going to be watching from around the world. Stephen, I thank you always for being such a fun guy to, tag team and do these great conversations with. And for those of you watching, Spirit Plant Medicine starts this Friday, October 23rd, and you can join us any which way. We've got 3 different ways you can join us, and if you use the code Seeta 2020, there's a discount there for you as well. So thank you, everybody, for watching, and now we're going to sign off with a beautiful mantra from Dr. Seeta. Thank you.
I wanted to add one thing because I caught myself in a lie. And that was, I do use cannabis still because I take CBD regularly. But I try not to take the THC because I try to have the, I try to control my own awareness. So I do take the benefit of the CBD component of the plant teacher. So I will say, and occasionally the THC when I'm disturbed with sleep. So I that awareness came through.
Thank you for your authenticity.
So let's just connect to our breath. Deep inhale. And exhale. And I actually want to invite everyone who's watching, just continue the deep inhales and complete exhales. I'm going to just end off with 3 Oms and the Dhanvantri mantra. So let's just bring our palms to the center of the chest. We're going to inhale for 3 Oms together. We're going to end with the Dhanvantri mantra. Allow this vibration to enter into you. Namami Dhanvantari Madidevam Surasurai Vandita Pada Padmam Loke Jararubhayam Mrutyunasham Dhataramisham Vividoshadhinam Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful.
And just for everyone, I just want to say that last one was the Dhanvantri mantra. That's the mantra of healing for global healing. So just allow that vibration to just permeate around you. It's still around you. And peace. Blessings to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.